proudly can say that Satipatthana practice is the only practice which is free from dangers.
ဒီနည်းအားဖြင့်လည်းပဲတိဋ္ဌာန်ဤအရာအခုလိုပြေဝစွာအားထုတ်လို့ရှိရင်စိတ်အားကြီးပြည့်လာတယ်အဲလိုစိတ်အားကြီးပြည့်လာတဲ့အခါဉာဏ်အားလည်းပြည့်လာပါပါပဲအဲလိုအချိန်ကြီးရောက်လာတဲ့အခါမှာမပြည့်နိုင်တဲ့တမေကုန်းချမ်းသာဆိုတာဘာလဲဆိုတာပြေဝစွာလေ့လာတဲ့ပုဂ္ဂိုလ်တိုင်းနားလည်လာပါပါပဲ
Sayadaw says, if you're really trying to have the mental strength and mental health in your life, you could gain that mental strength and mental health through the practice of Satipatthana. When you get that strong, healthy mind, strong, healthy mental states, at the time Sayadaw says, you will have such happiness which could be tasted as only a taste. You don't need to add any kind of ingredients in it to make the happiness tasteful. Itself there is full of taste. So unrelinquishing only taste, happy taste you will gain through the practice of Satipatthana. But another happinesses which you will gain need to add many spices and ingredients to make them tasty.
ကဲအဲ့ဒီတမေကုန်းချမ်းသာရရှိဖို့ရအတွက်နီလန်းလေးပေါ့လုပ်ကြည့်ကြစို့နည်းနည်းလေးထားပြီးအညောင်းလေးဖြည့်လိုက်ပါ So
Sayadaw says what he has already explained now, he would like to give the taste, even though it might be for short period, before we will start to taste that taste for a while, about 15 or 20 minutes. If you want to stretch your legs and hands, so you can do that. And I would like to beg pardon. Before Sayadaw gave an example about an accident person who got the accident and who has to be taken immediately to the hospital. I forgot to mention that example, so I would like to beg pardon from you. Although other people might not understand what I forgot, but here are a lot of Burmese people who might know that what I was missing. According to Sayadaw's permission, I am going to try to explain you to have some guideline how to do the practice. Please try to sit in comfortable way as you like. During the practice, because it is the training to calm down the mind and how to control it. Before we try to control our mind, at first it is necessary to have control in our body also. When we keep our body comfortably, with easiness, without any tension or stress in your body as well as in your mind, as the primary object or basic object of the practice, the guideline is given by the late Venerable Mahasi Sayadaw. According to his experience, he preferred to pay attention on the abdominal area to focus our mind. So, please pay your whole attention on the abdominal area. That means try to fix your mind on the abdominal area. There will be rising movement and falling movement when we take breath in and out. When the breath goes in, automatically the abdomen rises up. Try to get from the beginning of that rising process to the end as a whole one process, and have a mental note as rising. When you are trying to get the rising process, you shouldn't have any thinking in it. You just try to send your observing power or awareness as you are rushing forward to something. Immediately you have to catch the beginning process of the rising and follows as a one process without break. That means observing power should be followed together with the rising process and make a mental note as rising. And after that, the abdominal process will be falling down. Try to get the falling process from the beginning to the end, and do the same, follow the same process without any delay. Without any delay. Immediately the object arises, the observing power should follow together to establish firmly on it, to have the nature of stand-stillness, a firmness, to get the whole process as falling. So the basic object or the primary object or the main object of the practice to pay attention in the beginning is the rising and falling process. So when it is rises, rush towards the object and try to get it immediately and fix your mind on that process or on that object. And when there will be falling process, try to get from the beginning to the end as a whole process of falling, and dash towards the object without any delay. That is the most important aspect to get the object. If you make little bit delay, you couldn't get the object, because it is arising and passing away very quickly. And try to do the breathing in normal way. You shouldn't try to create forceful breathing. It is not necessary. Just normal breathing. That means as you are breathing other times, whenever you are sitting or standing or walking or lying down, which process is there naturally in your breathing, keep that breathing process at that time, and try to note rising and falling as much as possible. Try to focus your mind on that rising and falling process. But the mind is so wonderful one and so wandering one. After 2-3 noting, your mind may run away from you. So there won't be your mind. Sometimes it may reach to the Parliament House, or sometimes it may reach to the memorial, what is called, a death memorial or what? War memorial, sorry. Or sometimes in the city center, or sometimes somewhere else, or sometimes to your home, to your own home, or sometimes to your friends. So mind all the time likes to wander here and there. It doesn't want to stay in one place firmly, so there might be difficulties. And the hearing also will be the obstacle to you. So therefore, when strongly other objects arise during that moment while you are trying to focus your mind on the rising and falling, if hearing obviously arises immediately, then try to note that hearing immediately as you note the rising and falling process. Each and every object should be noted in the same manner. There shouldn't be any differences. But the secondary object which may arise afterwards, if it is not disturbing your noting of rising and falling, then it is not necessary to switch off your attention to the new object. But the new object is very clear and obvious to you, and it hinders your noting of rising and falling, then try to get the new object immediately. If you hear something, try to get immediately hearing. After proper paying attention, hearing will disappear and come back to rising and falling. Sometimes there might be some images, mental images. Try to note that also as seeing. And if there will be any thought, try to note as thinking. If there you are planning something, or you are having some ideas, or you might have some question in your mind, after that I would like to ask Sayadaw this and this questions, that type of thinking also might be there, or imagination may be there. Anyway, whatever object arises as the secondary object, obviously try to get that object immediately, rush towards the object immediately and get the object, make precise mental note. When that object disappears, go back to the rising and falling again. So this is the brief instruction. Now we are going to sit about 15 or 20 minutes. The ending sign will be given by Sayadaw himself, and according to sign we will stop our practice. Please close your eyes, not tight closing, just slight closing, not to have any seeing outside. And if you keep your legs, if it will be possible, without pressing the legs each other. The Sayadaw says, during the practice of meditation, we are following the Eight Noble Paths, which are the main source to have right understanding in our life about the teaching. Before this course, we have already observed 5 precepts to purify our physical and verbal behaviors, and that is the basic foundation of the practice. Without having purified our physical and verbal state, it is difficult to have well concentrated mind, because physical and verbal unwholesome acts could be the hindrance of our practice. And when we observe those 5 precepts, since then we have wholesome physical as well as verbal behaviors. There are 3 types of unwholesome behaviors physically: killing, stealing, and indulging in sexual misconducts. Through the observance of precepts, we are giving up all those impurities of body. And when we observe the 4th precept as abstaining from false speeches, in that there included other 3 types of wrong speeches also. We are trying to avoid harsh speeches, we are trying to avoid backbiting speeches, as well as frivolous talks. So in that way our verbal behavior also could be well preserved through the observance of the 4th precept. When we control in that way those unwholesome and physical behaviors, later on, if we try to train our mind to avoid subtle type of impurities which may arise very easily when conditions will be there, to avoid such obsessive defilements or obsessive impurities, we are trying to have another 3 factors which included in the 8th Noble Path. When we observe 5 precepts, we are observing the right speech, we are observing the right action, as well as we are observing the right livelihood as the precept factors of our wholesome conduct. And when we try to control our mind, in the beginning we need some sort of mental effort to keep our mind well fixed on the object which we are trying to observe clearly and precisely during the practicing period. Without mental effort, it is not easy to direct our mind towards the object. Suppose if we want to note the rising process very clearly and precisely, constantly at the same time when the rising process will be there, if we don't have precise effort to drive our mind towards the object, we couldn't focus our mind on that rising process. Therefore, mental effort is necessary. When we precisely drive our mind to get the rising process, and according to the consistent effort of noting the rising process, during that moment there couldn't arise any kind of unwholesome thoughts which could be easily arise other times in our mind. So therefore, right effort prevents us from arising impure thoughts. In that way the mind is well preserved to have purity in it. And when there will be right effort following in our practice, that is the factor, one of the factors of 8th Noble Path, as the right effort. When there will be right effort, right observing power also followed together to get the whole process of rising or the falling without missing any particles of it. So if our observing power is really following with that right effort, then we will get the noting object very clearly, rising as rising, or falling as falling, or thinking as thinking, imagining as imagining, planning as planning. Or there could be any other objects also physically arising. If we sit for longer periods, sometimes there might be aching, sometimes there might be tension, sometimes there might be stiffness, itchiness, all sorts of physical uncomfortable painful sensation could be there. If we are observing all those objects clearly at the same time, because of the right observing power or right mindfulness, we can keep our mind following all those arising objects. When our right observing power could be there precisely falling onto the object, and we can establish our mind well fixed on the object, our mind is well protected. right effort prevents the impurities not to enter, and the right observing power or mindfulness is there to protect our mind not to have any kind of defiling thoughts or impurities at that time. So in that way, right mindfulness or observing power also there in our practice. Although we think there might be some mental forces only, actually there are all those 8 noble factors following in even in one noting. And when that type of observing power will be there, rightly our mind fixed on that object, stands still our mind on that object, and if our mind is really fixing on that object, at that time concentration is there. Our mind doesn't wander away from the object. When standstillness of mind will be there, that is the concentration power of mind, so right concentration is there. So in that way, in one noting of rising, there is right effort, there is right observing power or the mindfulness, and there is the right concentration. Without these 3 factors, there couldn't be right concentration. So these 3 groups are called concentration group. Right action, right speech, right livelihood, these 3 are the moral groups, and these 3 aspects which just before mentioned are the concentration group. And during that moment, if our attention is not falling precisely towards the rising or the noting object, we couldn't have proper balancing effort in the noting. To have proper balanced effort in noting, therefore it is necessary to have precise aiming power to get the rising process as rising or falling process as falling. And that right aiming with precise timing will be there when right attention will be there. That means right thought should be involved at that time. That is the one of the factor of wisdom. So there are 2 factors in Noble Eightfold Path as the wisdom factors. One is right thought and another is right understanding. So when we will get precise aiming or attention towards the object, directly coming at the same time when the object arises, and that is the right thought. When the right thought will be there, that means our aiming and timing to get the arising object clearly. That means we can see the object, how the object is arising at that time, without missing anything in it, to see clearly, to observe clearly. When we see something clearly, and we have that thing in our hand, that means that object becomes very clear to us to understand what is in it. And through that, right understanding comes in our mind. Oh, this is the rising process. In the beginning, you might see only the form of abdomen, and sometimes you might see only the manners of the movement of abdomen. But when really you will have the right attention, right aiming and right timing, at that time you can see in that rising not only the movement of abdomen, you can see sometimes tension there, you can see sometimes vibration there, you can see sometimes pressure there, you can see sometimes stiffness there, you can see sometimes movement there. All sorts of physical phenomenal aspects could be there. So if you see stiffness as stiffness, it is the one of the elementary forces of wind element. So you can observe the wind element as it is, not as it arises or appears. As it appears. So clarity will be there. Oh, this is the rising. Rising means not only bloating of the abdomen. In that process, there are phenomenal substances, elementary forces, which should be understood. And that having that understanding is called the right understanding. So right understanding will be there. All factors are there in one noting. If the noting is very precise, accurate, and occurring simultaneously, constantly at the same time. So in one noting, we are following all those noble eightfold paths each and every moment. And whenever you are following the Eight Noble Paths, during that moment, there couldn't arise any kind of defilement factors. So that's why when Eight Noble Path is there to follow, that Eight Noble Path easily discard unwholesome things, unwholesome thoughts, unwholesome activities. In that way, if you try to see the benefit each and every moment, then you can see the benefit of the Satipatthana practice also, how those Eight Noble Paths are involved in each and every time. Just even a second noting moment, there are Eight Noble Paths following together.
Every day, I don't know, say to her, baby, say, I baby, the body. That's so deep, ma, to take your body. လောကမှာကြုံပြရတဲ့လောကဓာတ်တွေကိုလည်းပဲပြည့်မြတ်စွာခံနိုင်စွမ်းရှိပြီးတော့လူတွေမှာကြုံရတဲ့လူမှုပြဿနာတွေကိုလည်းပဲပြုံပြုံလေးနဲ့ရင်ဆိုင်ရတဲ့အနေမျိုးဖြစ်ပြီးတော့ဖြေရှင်းနိုင်စွာရှိကြပါစေလို့နောက်ဆုံးပြီးတောင်းတရင်းနဲ့ပေါ့ဆုံးတောင်းလိုက်ပါတယ်ခင်ဗျာ
The Sadhu says, having followed the Eight Noble Paths, as just now mentioned, through your own practice and through your own exercises, when you reach to the real understanding of the teaching or of your own practice, you will get well-established, well-developed mental powers, mental strengths, and that is the main source through which you can have well-controlled life or existence. That means you can bear any kind of problems very easily. Sadhu says, with smiling face. If there will be problem, you never get afraid of, you never get drive away from that the difficulties. Oh, you will understand, oh, this is the nature of life. So why I should get such disappointment? Why I should frustrate it? Let it be. Oh, this is the nature of life. And you know clearly all those phenomenal processes, how they are arising and passing away, and how they are in the flow of continuities. So at that time, oh, these troubles also will come and go. These happinesses also will come and go. So there won't be any imbalanced type of activities in your life. You would have real well-balanced life. That is the gift of the practice. And when you obtain that kind of mental power in your life, so you can face all sorts of pleasure and pains with smiling face. That ability is very important in this life. Having that ability, realizing the real truth of the phenomenal aspects, may all of you be successful in obtaining such understanding and to have well-balanced, well-controlled life within you.
master